Hey everyone, I'm back, and today we're going to be talking about The Eyes of Laura Mars. And this movie came out in 1978 and is directed by Reverend Kushner, if I pronounce that correctly, the same director as The Empire Strikes Back. And I've never seen anything else from Reverend Kushner aside from Empire Strikes Back. For the longest time, that was the only thing I've seen from him, and I was curious to see what else he had directed. And this movie was written by John Carpenter, not just by him, but a couple other writers, but he's credited as one of the writers, and that made me curious to check this one out. And this movie stars Faye Dunaway and Tommy Lee Jones, and it's kind of like a slasher movie, this one. And while I wouldn't necessarily classify it in the same way as something like Halloween or, I don't know, Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, it's more closer to the original Friday the 13th, where it's kind of just like a murder mystery. You didn't really know who was killing who. And that's how I would describe this movie. And it's also kind of like a slasher in ways. And if you wanted to classify it as that, then I wouldn't be opposed, or I wouldn't argue with you. And for a while, I was curious as to which direction this movie was going to take, as to whether or not we were going to actually know who the killer was. Like, are we going to go in the direction of just any other random horror movie and eventually know who the killer is? Or are you just going to leave it ambiguous and never tell us who it is and have it be more like Black Christmas from 1974? And that's something that I liked about the movie, is that it kept itself ambiguous. And the first two-thirds of this, like most of this movie, I really enjoyed, and I thought the opening scene was very well done, and it reminded me a lot of Halloween, the opening scene for that movie, and it was very well executed. And this movie is very well shot also. Every scene you can see the location very well, and also there's some really good shots in this movie that are very memorable. And I liked how the rules were set up, and it doesn't over-explain itself as to how things work, like practically, because the main character, Laura Mars, she does have a supernatural ability, I guess, if you want to call it that. That's something that was interesting to me, and I liked how it was played into the film, and it doesn't really fall into obvious, oh, this happened, and now it's going to fall into this, set of steps for the story to take place. Instead, it kind of just does its own thing, and it never gets dragged down by anything that would make it predictable or cliched. And I really do think that helps this movie a lot. And I also love that there's no dialogue in this movie for the first 10 minutes. I think that's super cool, and it's just all visual storytelling, and nothing super complicated is happening to where it gets confusing. It's just all nice and simple, and it does a great job at putting you in the perspective of our main character. And the performances in this movie were really good in this as well. I forgot to mention Brad Dourif, if I pronounced that correctly. He's in this movie as well. And he's kind of a fun character to watch. And there's some good character moments sprinkled throughout this movie that I really enjoyed. I also like the romance scenes in this movie. I thought that they were very well handled. And it did feel like two people who were really started to develop feelings for each other and genuinely loved each other or really liked each other. And the kills slash horror scenes in this movie, and when I say slash, no pun intended, I thought that they were very effective in this movie and were very memorable and actually scary and got to the intended emotions very well. And there's no shortage of good scenes in this movie that are effective and memorable. And I did like where the story went in this movie. It's nice and simple, and despite that, it still excels at being good, and it just keeps your attention throughout, and each scene moves the story forward. It never once feels like it's dragging on for too long, for the most part. There was maybe a minute or two that I was starting to feel a little uncomfortable while watching the movie, as in I was starting to get into the physical world and not to really be soaked into the movie, but that was a couple minutes, which I can forgive, and In terms of issues that I have with the movie, because I did have some, I wasn't in love with the music in this movie. I didn't think it was bad. I just felt as though I would have preferred it to be a bit more subtle, and it would have worked better for me. But that's just my personal preference. And there was one scene in this movie where a kill was happening, and the main character was just doing stupid things. And I was like, why are you doing this? And I just felt as though that was one of the worst scenes in the movie. And when things start revealing themselves, and once we get to the end of the movie, it's like, really? That was kind of predictable, and they still tried to make it a mystery somewhat. And I don't know, I was just kind of unsatisfied when we got to that point. And that's about all I have to say about The Eyes of Laura Mars. There's a couple of cheesy, dumb parts about it that I felt could have been better, but overall, I thought this was a solid movie that I would happily rewatch, and I think it's pretty good. There's some really great scenes in it that are really scary and very effective, very well made, and very well presented also. And that's what I'm there for. I love visual storytelling and the overall general presentation of things, how things happen in the movie. If you're the type of person who cares about how things happen in a movie, this is a movie for you. And fun fact, this movie came out the same year as Halloween, which is a John Carpenter directed movie, and everyone all knows that. And he also did the music and et cetera, et cetera. So 2 movies in which he was involved in that I've seen from 1978. And I would still prefer a Halloween over this movie, but still, I thought this was pretty good, and I'll watch it again for sure. And definitely check this movie out if you ever get the chance. And I saw it on Amazon Prime. That's where you should be able to find it if you're looking to watch this movie. At the time of me recording this, obviously. And with all that being said, I'm going to give The Eyes of Laura Mars a 7 out of 10. Thank you for watching my videos as always. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to leave a like and comment down below what you thought of The Eyes of Laura Mars, and my social media links. They will all be in the description, so follow me there. And last but not least, subscribe to be a part of Foley Nation, and I'll see you when I get my next review up, and that is going to be for Everest. So look forward to that, but until I get that up, thank you for watching and have a great day.